Hi, everyone. A warm welcome to the sixth episode of JSA's legal broadcast series. Indian healthcare is experiencing a new wave of opportunity. Healthcare providers are reinventing their delivery models to bring healthcare closer to patients. The government, on the other hand, has made many regulatory changes which are likely to have an impact on the delivery models for healthcare in India. Today's episode will focus on some of these innovations and regulatory challenges around them. We have with us today Rupinder Malik and Siddharth Shankar, my partners who focus extensively on this sector. Thanks for joining, Rupinder and Siddharth. So my first question is to you, Rupinder. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has recently legitimized doorstep delivery of scheduled drugs. What are the opportunities and challenges, according to you, for e-pharmacies pursuant to this notification?
Thanks, Vikram. As I see, most e-pharmacies have already operationalized infrastructure for doorstep delivery, which includes creating websites and mobile interface for placing the orders, uploading of prescriptions, and having arrangements with registered pharmacies for delivery of drugs. However, the notification that you mentioned, dated 26th, 2020, provides further clarity on the applicability of the regulatory regime for this delivery model. Now, with this notification, of course, this seems to be a step in the right direction, but it has also imposed some restrictions for delivery of drugs by traditional pharmacies. This notification specifically states that entities which wishes to sell drugs, the ones which are specified in the Schedule H of the drugs and the cosmetic rules, of course, except for the ones, certain specified drugs, through e-commerce platform will need to ensure that a prescription is first made available at the registered email address of the registered pharmacist. This will, of course, increase operational costs for traditional pharmacies. The primary challenge for e-pharmacies is that this notification does not explicitly provide exceptions for the e-pharmacy model, especially those operating under a marketplace model, given that they act as intermediaries between retailers and the customers. However, e-pharmacies have established the infrastructure required under this notification for ensuring doorstep delivery of the medicines, which does give them an advantage over traditional brick and mortar retail sellers. Another challenge that I see for both e-pharmacies and retailers is that this notification has introduced geographical restraints on retailers and requires that a retailer can only supply drugs within the same revenue district in which they are located. This not only restrains e-pharmacies and retailers' business expansion, but also forces them to ensure adequate inventories. Thank you, Vikram.
Thanks, Rupinder. Moving on to the topic of innovations in healthcare, COVID-19 has resulted in a flurry of innovations in the medical devices space. So, Siddharth, my next question is to you. The central government has recently notified all medical devices as drugs. Do you think this will result in the creation of an enabling ecosystem for innovations in medical device space?
Thanks, Vikram. Interesting question. Yes, COVID-19 has resulted in an increased demand for medical devices and drugs across the globe. It has given a fillip to the medical devices industry as new entrants work towards introduction of lower cost devices by relying on technological innovations. However, the intention of the government is to regulate all the devices that can be conceived for medical purposes with effect from 1st of April of 2020, irrespective, Vikram, of the degree of their contribution in the health of any person or animal. In my view, the immediate impact of the recent notification under Section 3B4 of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act will be an increase in the compliance cost, as manufacturers of innovative devices will now have to comply with numerous requirements under the MD rules of 2017. The new regime will also have an impact on the importers and distributors of innovative medical devices. As a result of the recently introduced broad definition, importers and distributors will need to comply with fresh licensing requirements. To ease the burden, the government has introduced exemptions for manufacturers, importers, depending upon classification of medical devices. However, these exemptions are temporary in nature. Hence, the new regime will result in increased costs for manufacturers, importers, and distribution of medical devices in short run. However, in the long run, I feel the recent decision to regulate all MDs will have a positive impact on domestic manufacturing industry as the quality of their products and their acceptability in global market will go up. Thanks, Vikram.
Thanks, Dutt. Another interesting area of regulatory oversight in innovations is that with effect from April 1, 2020, software which is intended for use in the diagnosis or treatment, mitigation, or prevention of any disease or disorder has been notified as a drug and will be regulated under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So, Rupinder, do you believe there is a need for a separate law to regulate software used in medical devices?
Thanks, Vikram. This is quite a critical question, in fact. So, as some of you will already be aware of the 11th Feb notification, pursuant to which all medical devices have been notified as drugs under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, includes a very broad definition of medical devices. The definition includes within its ambit software, as well as treats software at par with other medical devices and instruments. The primary concern with this definition is that it treats physical and tangible devices and virtual or intangible software at par. Additionally, the test for classifying software as medical devices is the intended purpose and whether such purpose is for diagnosis, treatment, mitigation, or prevention of any disease or disorder. The definition does not specify in what cases would software treated as performing medical task or performing merely operational and non-medical task. Hence, the decision of ascertaining the intended purpose of the software will be on government authorities. Now, authorities may lack the technical expertise in deciding whether the purpose of the software requires it to be treated as a drug. Also, given that most devices use software, certain software companies may come within the ambit of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. Considering this, in my view, it is quite crucial that the ambiguities are clarified and further guidance is made available on this by regulatory authorities. The government could also consider introducing separate laws for regulation of software distinctly from medical devices to resolve these ambiguities. Thank you, Vikram.
Thanks, Rupinder. This is, I think, one of the many challenges which the healthcare sector faces generally. So I think it would be a good time to understand how some of these challenges will impact the potential of the healthcare sector. With a strong demand where the Indian healthcare industry is expected to reach $372 billion by 2022 and many attractive opportunities, Siddharth, what do you think are the major challenges that the Indian healthcare industry will face in achieving these forecasted numbers?
Thanks, Vikram. The following are some key issues faced by the Indian healthcare industry. In India, there are multiple regulators governing the pharmaceutical sector at the center and the state level. As a result, the implementation of regulation is not uniform across the country. This has resulted in multiple standards of same products, different levels of regulatory compliance requirements, and unpredictable rigors of scrutiny that drug companies are subjected to in different states. Medical devices continue to be regulated both by the MD Rules 2017 as well as the DNC Act, since the definition of drug under the DNC Act remains unamended and includes medical devices. Attempting to regulate medical devices like drugs instead of passing a separate law for medical devices outside the DNC Act can have unintended consequences by confusing investors and discouraging investments as they need a predictable regulatory environment. Most of the drug licenses, such as the drug manufacturing licenses and drugs wholesale, retail distribution licenses across various classes, consist of change in constitution provision requiring the drug licensee to notify the licensing authority once it undergoes a change in its constitution. Post such intimation, the licensee is required to apply and obtain fresh drug license to continue operating its business. There is a lack of clarity on the scope of changes that would come under the purview of the change in the constitution of a drug license. This provision has been the key bottleneck, in my view, in deal making in the healthcare industry.
Thanks, Siddharth. Talking of deal making, maybe it's time to focus on the M&A side of the sector. So, generally, there has been a lot of focus on the healthcare sector and investment opportunities, such as hospitals, diagnostics, health tech, and additionally, relief funds are also brimming. With this crisis, the focus on the sector will be renewed. So, my next question, probably for you, Siddharth, is will the Indian healthcare industry witness a major consolidation in the near future?
Thanks, Vikram. I think the following factors may contribute to the need for consolidation, as efficiencies can be increased only through economies of scale. So highly skewed pricing of packages rates for services provided by private hospitals under the Ayushman Bharat scheme can hurt the profitability of smaller hospitals. Ayushman Bharat brings opportunities for PPP models to quicken the process of building infrastructure to provide healthcare services and encourages private investments into setting up hospitals in tier 2 and tier 3 cities under the scheme. The incentives proposed by the government include indirect incentives such as allotting unencumbered land to private hospitals and speeding up clearances. Such incentives would be considered attractive by larger corporate hospitals. Even McKinsey, in its article, had stated as the pandemic has reinforced supply chains can be at significant risk when there is an over-reliance on a location that may be vulnerable to disruption. Shifting production locations so that production is closer to end markets or in lower risk countries that are less subject to disruption are now routine consideration in risk mitigation. Supply chains are also becoming more patient-centric due to increased adoption of digital tools, telehealth, and app-based ecosystems. There may also be growth in demand for last mile production, and that is and a postponement and a gradual shift away from global supply chains to self-sufficient local supply chains. These changes may require sourcing strategies to evolve, as there will be areas of limited supply in the short term in categories such as sterile fill, finish, logistics, air freight, and fundamental changes in long-term contract manufacturing organizations and supply industries change and potentially consolidate. To sum it up, to offer a comprehensive predictive care, companies in the healthcare segment will aggressively focus on enhancing their scale of operations through M&A, acquire companies with proven digital expertise to enhance proficiency, or collaborate with other strategically beneficial companies to boost efficiency. Thanks, Vikram.
Thanks, Siddharth and Rupinder as well for your insights. There are certainly some interesting takeaways from this discussion, and I hope our listeners will find this useful. That brings us to the end of this episode. Wishing everyone good health in the current crisis. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.